Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Pei to Gimel Halacha Zayin. We are learning Daf Lamed Beis, Mamish, starting from the top of the Amid. So let's quickly chazer. We had on the Mishnah Zayin, the following rules that are related to Karka Kol Shehu, L'Rabbi Akiva Peya. That was the whole how we got into the sugya. That means even if you only have Karka Kol Shehu, and as the Gemara explained, upon which one little stalk can grow, but on every stalk you have many ears. Says Rabbi Akiva that if you didn't cut off the whole stalk, if you cut off one of the ears on the stalk, which triggers the chiyuv of peya, you're chayiv to leave, not the rest. You're chayiv to leave a 60th, whatever it is, but it's shayich. You're included in the obligation of peya, even when you only have karka kol shehu. Second case of the Mishnah was bikurim, right? And as we said, not for the fruits, but only for the chit and the so'ira. Pruzbul, takonas hilal, to allow us using this pruz buli bute, only for milsa de shchicha. Milsa de shchicha is people lend money if the borrower has land. Even if it's only karka kol shehu, it's also included in the takona. Kinyan agav, it can be huge metaltalin, agav karka. Metaltalin, you can only be coined with Mashiach. I should add something I didn't say yesterday. You can make a king in Sudar. You can make a king in Sudar for metaltalin. But Chazaka, there's no such a thing. Nevertheless, if you make the normal Kesef Shtar Chazaka king in Ankarka, and Agav the Karka, the person acquired the metaltalin, they'll be coined the metaltalin. Matnash Chivmira, as we explained, that if we don't know explicitly that it's a gift because he's a shchivmera, it's a presumption. When do we presume it's a matna shchivmera? If he gives everything away, if he retains even only karka kol shehu, that's an indication, unless explicitly said, that it's not a matna shchivmera, which means aleph, if you don't make a kinyan, nothing happened. On the other hand, if you made a kinyan for the gift, then even if the person did not pass away, it won't be nullified, because it's not a matna shchivmira. And then ibdak suvasa, the scenario where a woman, when the man is giving everything away, all of his properties away, we said that after takanas go'inim, all of his property away, and included in the gift, he gives her something, even only karka kol shehu, even if the karka kol shehu is not going to cover a ksuba. The fact that she did not protest against that gift, we understand that to mean that she was moichel, the lien that the husband had on his properties, because she got the karka, even though it's only karka kol shehu. And then we added yesterday in the Braisa that rei oyon, the mitzvah of aliyas regel, the obligation on a male, kol churcha, bar mitzvah over, yeroah shalosh panim b'hashana, is only if you own land, and as the words of Chazal are, misha eloi karka, potem in hariyah. That's what we learned yesterday. That's where we left off. I just want to add that if you remember in the beginning of Pesach, that Gimel Amid Beis, when you had that goy, that he came to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida in Nitzivim, remember that? And he boasted that he tricked everyone, because the Torah says, Kol benechar lo yoichal boy. But I get the Korban Pesach. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida asked him, do you get the fatty tail? The emesis, the tail goes on the Mizbeach. No, goy cannot eat. You never ask for the aliyah. He comes back, he asks for the aliyah. They were curious. Why would he ask for the tail? Everyone should know the tail is not given. And they made a bedika, and they found out that he's a guy. And they made that expression. The Gemara says that to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida, ad v'netzivin, but umitzudascha perusa al Yerushalmi. So Tosfos asks, why wasn't Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida why wasn't he himself in Yerushalmi? So Tosfos gives three answers. The first answer is our Gemara, that since Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida did not own land, so therefore he was exempt. The Tosfos says maybe he was a chayla. Tosfos says maybe in Nitzivin is chutz la'aretz, and that's the Tosfos over there. But even in the Babli, we have this concept of misha eloi karka is exempt from the obligation of aliyas l'regel. The Gemara now is going to begin with stories, beautiful stories, how Hashem protects Yidden when they do the mitzvah of aliyas l'regel. Actually, we quoted the pasuk in Parshas Ki Sisa that loyachmaid ishes artzecha ba'aloischa leirois espanei Hashem alekacha shalosh ramam b'ashana loyachmaid, because think about it, if everyone knows that all of the Yidden are going to go up to Yerushalayim, a person who has bad intentions, he can move your fence over, he can break into your house, who knows what they can do, And the Torah promises nothing will happen. And the Gemara is going to share many stories where mamish nisim l'mayla madarach hateva, Hashem protected the Yidden that do aliyas l'regel. We're going to spend some time on Daf Lamed Beis learning. Number one, what's the source of Kinyan Agav? We have the sugi I want you to know in Bava Basra. We're going to chazer what we learned in Bava Basra, that really it's a machlokes tanoim. Rabbi Eliezer holds. We're going to learn about Kinyan Agav. We're going to have a question regarding Kinyan Agav. Do the metaltal have to be on top of the karka or not? We're going to ultimately try to prove from over here that it doesn't have to be on top. Because since our Mishnah says, for Kinyan Agav, karka kolshu, what can you fit on karka kolshu? The Gemara is going to take away that right. But we're going to speak about that. And because of that, we will also chazer shitas Rabbi Eliezer, who disagrees with this whole concept that by matmash chidmira, the chachamim, it's really a chachamim. The chachamim empowered divrei, his words, like a kinyan. They disagree with that, as we will go through the sugya. The Gemara is going to focus also, but again, the rule of shchidmera, that if he retains the land of any size, then the gift is not voided, even if he recovers of this illness. And really, we're going to see there are two types of shchidmera. And there's two types of shchidmera, which is gavaldik, meaning someone who gradually gets bad versus someone who gets sick very quick. How that will affect the laws of the Mishnah of land retention. And we're going to learn a little bit about Hilchos Bikur Cholim. You know, there's a concept called Kris Krusa L'Sfasayim, that there's a covenant, whatever you say has a big effect, even something not positive. And it's amazing how we apply it sometimes even to Bikur Cholim, which means if no one yet knows that, let's say, Reuven is sick, no one knows. The fact that people are going to visit him could have a negative effect. People are going to be talking that Reuven is sick. And just saying those words make it worse. And therefore, unless a person gets quick immediately, danger, if it's gradual illness, unlike family that should be mevakar choila immediately, others should wait a few days. This is an interesting topic. If I'm not mistaken, we have something similar also in the sugya of chaloimais in brachas. Or not, but it's going to be a gavaldik daf. Without any further ado, mamash, we're starting with stories. Daf Lamed Beis, all the way on the top. So again, we quoted the pasuk, which was the source that Misha Ein Karka is exempt from the mitzvah of Aliyas L'Regel, Parshas Kisisa. It says, Lo Yachmid Ishas Artzecha Ba'Loischa. Is that ayah that you have to have Artzecha? Nevertheless, even only Karka Kol Shahu will be Machayiv you for the mitzvah. Lo Yachmid, says the Gemara, Maisa Be'echad, story number one, Sheniach, Es Kiriyoi, that he left his field that already had piles of grain unattended because of the mitzvah. People leave ultimately wherever they're at. It's like when you leave your office. The difference is today you can put a lock on your office. Then you worked in your field. If you're doing the mitzvah, you left everything, and people would have stolen it. Everyone knew. You see, there's a mashgiach yoytzev v'michmas. That means that people don't know when you're coming, when you're going. The balabas, that in itself, in a half normal society, will prevent people from stealing. Not here in LA, but in normal, it's in the world now. Never. But if everyone knows you're gone for what? For you're talking about 7 days. And Yontif is 7 days in Eretz Yisrael, but then the time to go, the time to come back, people know you're gone. Says the Gemara, Bo Motza Aroyois. Mamish, he found lions that were surrounding his field, which is a Mamish Anes. Lions normally don't go into a habitat. That was one of the makkahs. That was the anomaly. And here the lions came. You have all these Hasidic Shamaises of the lion, that the Moroccan have these stories, how the lion took this yid from here until there. Here you have in the Gemara story with lions. Another story. A chicken coop. And he found cats that were torn apart before the chickens, which is even greater than the lions. Because the tava is that when cats, I know I had 2 chickens by COVID. What happened one morning? I felt bad for my son. The chickens were gone because my neighbor's cats, my goyish neighbor, they came and they were mazik. They tear apart. Cats tear apart. They tear them apart violently. But to have chickens tear apart cats, that's the opposite of the normal. A third story. Chad Barnash, Shovik Beiset Pasiach. He left his house open. Now, who asked you to leave your house open? Nevertheless, he didn't lock the doors. He did not lock the doors. He did not close the doors. For us, we had the word chachina, I think, in brachas in Yerushalmi. Chachina in Yerushalmi is at Nachash. And it was that, I think chachina might have been the aroit. Remember that? That real dangerous snake. We had this word before. He found the chachina kricha al kar kisoi, around the lock. In other words, there was a snake that was guarding his house. Now, why this guy was zoicha to have a lion, maybe in the field a lion, and the house a snake, ich weiß nicht, but the Eibush that Pashat sent guards. And the fourth story, that Pinchas Mishtoi Hadein Uvda. This is Gavaldik. The first three stories, the Gemara doesn't say who said it. This sounds mamish like Sipurei Chasidim. Here at the beginning, that this and Rebbe, like they're sailing, and they say the night, this and Pinchas used to say the following story, that Trei Achim da Ashkelon, Havela Hoin, Havelahu Megoyden Nuchrayin. They had Megoyden Nuchrayin, they had the Goyish Megurin, you know, they were landlords, so they had the Goyish tenants. And Omri, these Goyim, they lived next door to the owner. And they said to each other, Kedoin Ilan Yudoi Salkin Yerushalayim, and those Yidden are going to go to Yerushalayim. Anan Nosfin Kol Ma the Islahain, we will take everything that they own. So in the Salkin or Ma the Salkin, when they actually went up, Zimen HaKadosh Baruch Hu Malachim. So before we learned about a lion and a chicken and a cat, here we're learning about the Eibush that took Malachim. And the Chnasim v'yoytzim b'demusim, and the Malachim assumed the appearance of the landlords, of the Yidden. So the Goyim, as far as they were concerned, no one went to Yerushalayim. Where do we have such stories? Normally we have these stories when it comes to demons, to Shadim. That demons can take the form aside of the chicken feet. Here we're saying that Malachim were sent, b'demusan. So the Goyim never knew that they left. Min the Nachsun, when they came back down, when they came back home, Shal Chalohaim Bikaman, they sent their Goyish neighbors gifts. Guys, when you go on a trip, it's nice. When you come back home, you bring a gift. Now, some people only give a gift when they go on the trip. So these Jews, when they came and they gave a gift, didn't fit because the Goyish neighbors only would get gifts when the Jews went on a trip, but as far as they were concerned, they never went on a trip. So they asked him, "On Haveisan, where did you go? Why are you giving me a gift?" What are you talking about? Yerushalayim. So the Goyim told their Jewish neighbors, "Man, Shavaktum b'goy beso. Who did you leave behind?" So the Yidden who heard the question understood that someone was there, and they knew that it wasn't a human being. So they already chapped and they told him, Lo barnash, not a human being. We left behind malachim. Nishkan mention. This Nishkan mensch. Could be it's a compliment in the Gemara. Okay? Not a mensch, a mechben malach. Could be all right. Amrim. So they said, Brichu elokohan the Yudoi. Blesses is the Eibishter of the whole world, which is so far only really appreciated by the Yidden. The Loi Shafkan, that he doesn't abandon them, right? Actually, the Loi Shafkan means that the Jews did not abandon, and the Eibishter did not abandon. We don't abandon each other. It means, right, that we go to Yerushalayim, we don't abandon the Eibishter, and Hashem protects all of us. How beautiful is that? And that we should do our part, we should do what the God wants, whether it is protection, whether it is parnusa, alle gute Sachen. Okay, says the Gemara. Now we're going back to the Mishnah.
Do we hold it today? The version of being on the regel, let's go to the Rebbe.
So Danny's reminding us that we learned a few times that it's an obligation. Chayiv adam lekabel pnei Rabbi beregel. Chayiv adam lekabel pnei Rabbi beregel. And sometimes, let's say a modern day moifes, the wife doesn't want you to go. She needs help in the house. Do gay. You leave a malach that will do all your work. Do all the work for you. The Hasidim used to go before Chodesh Elul, and they would come back after Chanukah. You understand?
Rabbi Zajac would always go.
Rabbi Zajac would always go. Okay. The thing is, Rabbi Rajik was the malach. That's the problem with him. I understand? Okay. Now, the link noise imay nechasim king and agav. So the Mishnah says that if you have even karka kol shuhu and you sold together with the karka mitaltalin, even though the koina made a kinyan, the Mishnah says bekesav shtara b'chazaka on the karka, but he did not make the kinyan a meshicha hagbaa. He did not make a kinyan sudar chalipin. Nevertheless, it worked. That means that the buyer acquired everything, and as the Gemara is going to open up, is movable property. They're not used as a guarantee for anything important. The liens are placed on karka. That's a loshon of Chazal of metaltalin. Shehei niknan, that they are automatically acquired in the chasim sheish l'machrayis by making a kinyan on the nechasim sheyesh l'machrayis bekesav v'shar v'chazaka. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosi b'shem Chizkiah, and Rabbi Yoina and Rabbi Chanina tir toya in the name of Chizkiah. So you have it all in the name of Chizkiah, and he's quoting a pasuk in Divrei Hayomim. It says, and the fathers gave them many gifts. And first he enumerates metaltalin, gold, silver, and migdanois, delicacies. And now it doesn't say, and ore mitzurais bi Yehuda, right? And fortified cities. No, it says with, big difference. In other words, if a person is giving gifts, metaltalin and karka, and gold and silver and migdanois and cities. Doesn't say that. It says im mitan ayin. With means that it's a king and agav karka. It goes together with it. Gavaldik. Okay. I want you to know there's a big machloikus amongst the Rishonim. We had this in the Babli, whether king and agav is midoiraisa, whether it's midrabanan. How can the Chachamim make up a kinyan? Because hefker bez and hefker doesn't only mean that they can take something away from you, but hefker bez and hefker also is that they can bequeath it to someone else. And that's really in Gittin Daf Lamed Vav. I think where the Gemara gets two psukim, hefker bez and hefker. I forgot the two psukim. One was from Yeshua, how he divided the land. I think we spoke about these are the classic. Two psukim, one is to show that the beis din have the koyach to make you disown it, to take it away from you, to be mafkia your bailas, and even greater is that they can give it to someone else.
Was there a machlekes whether the metaltalin had to be on the? That's
the machlekes whether metaltalin on or not, which we had on the Babli, is going to be right now in the Yerushalmi. That will be the topic. So frag the Gemara. Now that we established the source, at kedoin, one thing is clear: you have a pasuk in Divrei Hayomim. Kishahoyu karkois im hametaltalin b'makamach. It means, Danny, they're one on top of the other. They're together. That, for sure, is going to work. And actually, why are we saying for sure? Not only because it's the lesser of a chiddush. So the Rashi Elio says, Gavaldik, you have a pasuk in Divrei Hayomim, and the pasuk says, Im arei betzurois, im ami. The Rashi Elio says the pasuk is mashma that the gold and the silver and the delicacies, they were there. It was together, meaning they were there. So that's the source implies together. Question is, will that be effective or not? Says the Gemara. And again, why are we having this topic? Because one of the attempted proofs that will be disproven will be from our Mishnah. Karka kolshu, what can you put on karka kolshu if it has to be on top? Okay, but before we get to it, Rabbi bon Barchiam, Nashmi Inam and Ada. And now we're quoting a Braisa, and as we spoke on our Hagdama, and guys, we had this in Babli, Baba Basra, Matna Shchivmira. Even though we said, Matna Shchivmira is that even though he made no kinyan, his words are mamish like a kinyan, because if a person who's about to pass away will think that his final will not be respected, that creates anxiety, which can hasten his death. And here again, the Chachamim, let's go with Hefker, Beis, and Hefker, they can say that his words are like a kinyan, with all of the nuances. The nuance is that not only is it like a kinyan, the kinyan only goes into effect upon death itself. So if the person recuperates from that illness, that means that that person doesn't die, then that whole gift is automatically null and void. Unlike by other kinyanim, mitzad echad, you have to do an act of a kinyan. Mitzad sheni, whatever your kavana was, I sold property with whatever my kavanah was. Once the buyer made a kinyan, I cannot retract it. So that's now Rabbi Eliezer argues with this whole matnas chivmira. How much does he argue? We don't know yet. But we know that he argues. So Amar Lohem Rabbi Eliezer to bring a proof that there is no unique koyach in the words of a shchivmira. Where did he prove it from? He proved it from a story. He wanted to say, you see, the Chachamim did not agree with this concept of a matnas chivmira. And the story was Maisa bin Meiroini Echad. There's different girsois. Let's go with someone who lived in Meron, Pashut, who happened to be in Yerushalmi. And v'hoyloi mitaltalin harbe. Ubikesh lechalkam litlim b'matana. Guys, the assumption was that he was a shchivmina. He was laying in Yerushalmi. He wanted, people know when they pass away without doing anything. The Torah has dinei Yerusha. This person did not want his yarshim to yarshim. He wanted to give it all away. So again, the presumption is that they were speaking about a matna shchivmina, and the problem was, how do you make the transfer? Now, how do you make the transfer? So let me say like this, that I know that Meshicha, if his stuff were in Meron, he's in Yerushalayim, Meshicha wouldn't work. That I understand. But what about a king in Sudan? So I just want people to know like this, and this is something until today we do a lot of king in Sudan. When you do a king in Sudan, the recipient of the gift should be the one giving the Sudan, and it's like a chalipin. Ke'ilu, like, I'm giving you mine because I'm getting your handkerchief. Do I get to keep your handkerchief? We actually return the gartel, but we don't have to return the gartel. So if you don't know the person with whom you're making a kinyan, you have a concern that you're not going to get your gartel back. I'm saying all of that to explain why this person was concerned with what to do. So Amrullah, the Chachamim told him that ein at yochel ella im kain kanisa karka. Let me tell you how you can resolve giving a gift. All of this is araya. If matna shchivmira does not demand the kinyan, what's the whole issue? Let the guy just say what he wants. But the whole story is they gave him an eitzah. What was his eitzah? You have to acquire your land. Now it's kavaldik. May also the land he was in Yerushalayim. He can acquire land in Yerushalayim. You know how expensive land is in Yerushalayim? It will change. So the vart is that he'll acquire land locally. The people will make a kinyan locally on the land, and agav the land, he'll give them. All of that was a proof that Rabbi Eliezer brought the fact that all of these steps needed to be done. If matna shchivmira means no kinyan is needed, the whole thing was not needed. That was his right. But hold on a second. What was the solution? Kinyan agav. Where was he? In Yerushalayim. Why couldn't he give away his metaltal and let him do Mashiach? Because his metaltal was in Meron. So how did they make a kinyan in the karka? They made a kinyan in the karka in Yerushalayim. So that's the proof. You get it? That when you make a kinyan karka in Yerushalayim, even though the metaltal is not mamish agav karka, it also works. So also halach v'kana sela echad b'tzad Yerushalayim. When he heard how much real estate costs. Another thing, for king and agav karka, that's our Mishnah. You only have to have a karka kosher. So he bought the least expensive piece of land. First of all, you see it's not in Yerushalayim. Till today, you go outside Yerushalayim, and he bought a rock. He bought a rock, meaning a rock in the ground. And then after he acquired it, then he said, "Va'amar." He told another detail that the recipients of the gift were not there. If the recipients of the gifts would have been there, he would have made a king in Sudan. You kidding? I give you my handkerchief. He's giving them who knows how much of millions of dollars. He'll get his handkerchief back. What happened must have been is that he wanted others to acquire on behalf of the recipients. You understand? I'm just explaining why he couldn't do the Mashiach through a shlit. So Amar, and then he told the people, listen here, on behalf of my intended recipients, okay. All of that is Rabbi Eliezer's proof that the words of a shchivmira are not like a kinyan, and the Gemara is approving from this brayso that the metaltalin do not have to be agav karka. First of all, the items are far away, and how can you fit 100 barrels on top of a cellar? I'm saying it's not shaykh. It doesn't have to be on top. So the Gemara says, Amar Rab Chananya Kumi Rav Manem. You are coming with the assumption that the man was a shchivmera. That's the whole raya of Rabbi Eliezer. That if shchivmera's words are like a kinyan, that's it. That was Rabbi Eliezer's proof. But hold on a second. You think that Rabbi Eliezer completely doesn't give any additional power to the shchivmera? Rabbi Eliezer doesn't hold that you can do it without a kinyan. But maybe Rabbi Eliezer will agree that some leniency you make for a shchivmera. What would it be? Maybe kinyan agav. Maybe it has to be on top of the land. Elama, since he was a shchivmera, they allowed this leniency only because he's a shchivmera. V'lo shchivmera who? So lefi shebechol makim ein adam mezaka ela b'chsav v'kan afilu b'dvarim. Now I know that Rabbi Eliezer disagrees, but maybe he only disagrees with the dvarim. But lefi shebechol makim maybe ein adam mezaka ela al shiyu karkois b'dal makamach. Maybe normally they do have to be together. V'kan afilu karkois b'dal makamach v'tal makamach. So therefore, you don't have a raya. You don't have a raya from that brayso. That is what the Gemara is saying. Turning to Daf Lamed Beis Amud Beis counters the Gemara. Amalei, I disagree with you. I do have a raya from that story. Why? Because Lord Rabbi Eliezer and Shanya he does Rabbi Eliezer differentiate between a shchivmera and a body? No, we know. Guys, Rabbi Eliezer, that's his whole point of the Chachamim. He doesn't agree that they made a dispensation for a shchivmera. He doesn't agree that a shchivmera is different. Don't try to kvetch in. He also was moided that it's different, but it's not dvarim, but maybe not agav karka. No, Rabbi Eliezer holds a shchivmera as like a body. And therefore, yes, I bring a raya from this story, from this brayso, that king and agav works even if it's not on top. Shchivmera de Rabbi Eliezer is mamish like a body de Rabbana. So I bring a proof from this brayso lekula alma that king and agav karka does not have to be on the land. So we have one raya from the brayso. Now, I just don't know how to learn. The fact that the Gemara pushed back on it, and when you heard the pushback, it made sense. Okay, Rabbi Eliezer doesn't agree that his words are like a kinyan, but maybe he is machalik, maybe he gives them a leniency. That was a good pushback. So the Gemara therefore wants to bring another proof. Well, this proof is not 100%, even though it will be the only proof we have. The second attempted proof, which at the first glance sounds like, wow, a checkmate proof, will be from our Mishnah. Zajac the Gemara, Tamon, Tanina, and over there we learned this Gemara is in Yerushalmi Kedushin. That's where this Gemara is. And when you learn Kedushin, Mesachtas Peya is over there. I'm just explaining the word Tamon. Tamon means there. If this sugya would have been discussed, or the raya would have been discussed when the Chazal were learning Mesachtas Peya, they would not say Tamon, they would say here. But we're copying and pasting, which happens many times. The main topic was when they learned Kedushin, Yerushalmi Kedushin. And when they learned that, so they said Tamon, Tanina, and we learned over there, meaning over here in Peya, Mishnah's Pei Gimel, Mishnah Zion, Rabbi Akiva, Oimer, Karka Kol Shuva Peya, Bikurim, etc., etc., etc. And then, like we mentioned, our Mishnah had, what did we have, guys? We had Peya. No, what were the things in the Mishnah? We had Bikurim, Peruzville, King and Agav, Karka Kol Shuva. Now let me ask you a question. If you think that metaltalin has to be on the land, what metaltalin can fit on Karka Kol Shuva? That in itself should be a proof that it doesn't have to be on top of the land. Gavaldik. Karka Kol Shuhu Matov. What good is it if the metaltalin has to be on top? So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Who here is in the diamond business? What's that do? You can have a Karka Kol Shuhu, just like Peya. What is Peya? One shiboilus. You know what you can put on one shiboilus? You can put a 10-carat diamond. Who knows what? Omar Matanya, Tiftar, no. Shahoyasham shiboilus achas, and numargolis tamuna boy. Either it means that the margolius is in the ground, or you can say better. I don't know if it's in the ground, because for one shiboilus, let's say one shiboilus is 2 millimeters. You can have a diamond that's 2 inches, but you put it on top of the shiboilus. And therefore, our Mishnah is not the raya. The Gemara did hold, at least Rav Mana, that the brayso that we brought from Rabbi Eliezer is a raya. because Rabbi Eliezer doesn't differentiate, and his stuff was over there in Meron. And even if the stuff was in Yerushalmi again, you cannot fit 100 barrels or 200 barrels. Maybe you could on a Yerushalmi rock. Mistama, he bought a rock, you understand, a millimeter rock. I wonder how much he paid for the rock. Nebuch. All right, these Yerushalmis. Let's go. Okay, Vaita, now we're going to focus directly on the Shchiv Mirah. So after we had those four, then we had the Shchiv Mirah and the Ibda Ksubasa by the woman. Those were the six of the Mishnah. So our Kosev Mechasav Shchiv Mirah. And I just want to point out again, this is very important, that we said this when we learned yesterday. If a Shchiv Mirah says explicitly that I am gifting this and that and the other of my Nechasim Leploini Uploini because I'm afraid I'm going to die, even if he retained Karka, it does not change it from Matna Shchiv Mirah. With the leniencies and with the stringencies, stringency means his words go into effect by death, even though no kinyan was made. With the leniencies that if the person recuperates, the whole matan is null and void. Our Mishnah is that he never said this is a matna shchiv mirah. So we have to now halachically establish why is he gifting it. Here is where the Chazal said is that if a person gifts everything, why is he doing it? Because he's getting ready not to be ba'olam hazeh. If he retains even karka kol shehu, that is a proof. Why would he retain karka kol shehu? Is that ayah that he's not that it's not a matna shchiv mirah? Because if he plans to live, if he plans to die, he would not keep. If he's keeping, that means even though he plans to live, he doesn't need Mar Menachasim, Mar Badaiga, donated to Chabad. You'll hear all these things from fundraisers. How good is it for you to give all your property away to someone else? It's Gaval. Oh. So now, this is Gaval. There's really two types of Shchiv Mirah. Shchiv Mirah, you're laying because you're very sick. But the difference will be, how did you get to the very sick? Kol shaloi kafatz olav achoili. So you have illness that progresses gradually. Shaloi kafatz. Then you have an illness shekafatz olav. Illness shekafatz olav means that the illness springs upon the person. A person is very well, and mitamal, the person is very sick. So listen, the Gemara is saying a big statement that if a person gets sick very quick, it's a feeling. They fear death. And when a person in the state of fearing death gives his stuff away, even if he retains something, we don't interpret, you're retaining it is because it's not a matna shchiv mirah. It is a matna shchiv mirah.
So why is he retaining it?
Akasha. But he's giving it because he thinks he's going to die. Because when a person is in a state of they think they're going to die, I think some people, Danny, even when they know they're going to die, they still want to cover all the bases just in case they're going to live. But the gift is because they're going to die. Okay, says the Gemara.
What if he got up? What if he got up?
That we learn. Once he gets up, by matna shchiv mirah, that's null and void. Another thing, just to chazer what we repeated yesterday, the Mishnah began hakosev mechasav. It's very important, the hakosev. I'll tell you why. Because if he didn't, see, the shtar itself is a kinyan. Shtar itself is a kinyan. The chiddush of the shchiv mirah is that even if he made a ksiva, even though he made a shtar, and the recipient got the shtar, if Chazal say it's matna shchiv mirah, if he gets up, the shtar is nullified. That's the gewaldigkeit of a matna shchiv mirah. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, now that you told me there are two types of shchiv mirahs, someone who got gradually ill and someone shekafatz olav cholyoi, someone whose illness springed upon them, and that will express itself halachically. B'negeya, our Mishnah of shiur karka kolshu does not apply if it kafatz olav achoyli. B'negeya, another mitzvahs bikur choylem. There's also a nafkamina whether a person is gradually getting worse, or if a person, God forbid, goes from very healthy to very sick all of a sudden. And that is derech eretz. That's derech eretz. It's the proper way that when a person is only gradually getting worse, some people should not visit him right away. And like we spoke on in our intro, based on a concept called bris krusalis fosai, that God made a covenant with the lips, that when we speak about someone being sick, we speak about it, it makes him sick. Because we say the words, he's sick. Problem is, if what do you say, you are ignoring reality, it means like this, that the Karoivim nechnasim etzlamiyat for mitzvahs bikar chaylim. Because they know that he's sick, perhaps. The harachoikim nechnasim etzli only la'achar shloisha yamim. Yavaldik. However, when do we say that if you're not a relative, don't do bikar chaylim right away, you might be doing more bad than good. That's only when a person is gradually getting sick. But im kafatz olav achayli, now you see the link. Elu ve'elu nechnasim etzloi miyad. You know why? Because he's already sick. In other words, bris krusalis v'sai means is that when a person gradually gets sick, maybe he's not that sick. But if a person goes from very healthy to sick, no, that's sick. He's anyway sick. You might as well. If I can't, the Chazal say that if you are born in the same mazel, that's not always the case. If you're born in the same mazel, when you're mavaka chayla, you take away a 60th. Remember that Gemara? Gemara says you go be you take away a 60th. So that 60 people should visit. It doesn't work that way. First of all, everyone just takes a 60th from what the other guy left over. You feel better, but it's not always that case. Sometimes when you're sick and people are mavaka chayla, you get much worse after they leave. That's normally the rule. They gave you a headache, but that has to do with whether they have your mazel or not. Or if they don't have a mazel, who doesn't have a mazel? I know that Yisrael don't have a mazel, but I know it means people that were born in Chodesh Adar. Question is in which Adar? That was the whole thing, that when Yeshua fought Amalek, when Moshe Rabbeinu told Yeshua to fight Amalek, Parshas Peshalach, we read this on Purim. So what's the lashon over there? That who Rashi writes, who says that who went to the war, that there were big machashvim, the Amalekim, and in order to prevail over them, because there was also some sort of a kishuv, so there were people that were born. He only got soldiers that were born in Adar. All of the Charedim, not one Charedi was born in Adar. You watched over there. Everyone was born in the other months. I forgot if it's Adar Aleph or Adar Beis. It was Gavaldi. All right, let's go back. So here we have this nafkemin. Okay, this is great. So again, if a guy is covered all of a chayli, Danny, a person is giving a gift because he's afraid of dying. Even if he retained property, remember, even if he retained property, it's a matnas chidmeda. And even if he made a kinyan, if he got better, the recipient doesn't get to keep it. Matnas chidmeda. I share karka, he got sick right away. Says the Gemara Dolma. Guys, we had this word a few times in Yerushalmi brachas. Not Dilma. Dolma in Yerushalmi means Maisa. Nocha Maisa. Dolma, the Gemara says a story that Rab Chune and Rab Pinches and Rab Chizkiah, Salikun Mevakra, they came to visit Rabbi Yosi only after he was sick for 3 days, based on the derech cheretz that we learned. So what do you tell people that are coming to visit you? Depends who you are, depends who they are. So Armaloin, Rabbi Yosi told them that you wish to fulfill the Braisa. you came here because you learned in a Braisa that to wait 3 days. You applied the Braisa wrong. Just like the Braisa says that relatives come right away. We are relatives. Chabad Soul of family, mishpacha. And I'll tell you more than that. You think about it. If it's based, we learned this in the Babli. Is it in brachas by the sugya of the chaloimus? I think we had it there. Trying to remember in the beginning.
Yes. And brachas dafnei.
Dafnei. Oh, thank you. So let me go over here. So in other words, think about it. Bris krusalis fosayim. Friends will be careful. I think that's the way I understand it. Kroivim are anyways bad mouthing you. It's not worse, even when you're healthy. But I think chavedim, good chavedim, they were amoraim, they were tzaddikim. They'll be very careful what to say, what not to say. They'll be mindful. So there's no danger, and there's a mitzvah of bikar chaylim. So what did he tell them? You should have come before. What a wonderful way to begin a meeting.
What Gemara is he talking about?
In the Gemara, definitely about the Gemara of Chaloimah, there we had this concept there also about how long are you sick, I think when in the same topic of Chaloim is the whole
there
thing.
is the masa with Rava that he was sick, and after one day, it's like you go pikach race.
But I'm saying, why is it there? Because of the prayer that we make during Birchas Kahanim. I'm trying to remember. Okay, anyways, it's some brachas. Yeah, okay, it's over there. Rabbi Mendel is wrecking his Rei Nevach. You have to chazer brachas. You see, you don't review. You get it, you lose it. You get it back. We'll get it back, guys. We're getting it all back. There's going to be a pill soon. You're going to swallow the pill. You won't forget. You won't lose your memory in America. No more Yagir. Okay. Says the Gemara. So what did we learn in the Mishnah? Let's go now. Okay, we clarified that what we're talking about a matna shchivmara David that was not explicitly said because it's a matna shchivmara. We said the Mishnah says he wrote a document, which normally you give a document star. Nevertheless, if he gave everything away, even though you made a kinyan, even though there was a star, if the person gets better, the whole thing is null and void. But then the Mishnah says that if Mshir, Karko, Kol Shu, now according to the words of the Mishnah, then Matanosa Kayemes. Va'afilu, guys, we have to take out the law. There's a lot. Va'afilu Hivri. Because we don't presume that it was a Matna Shchivira. But we're in other words, when we touched it in the Mishnah, we were quoting this Gemara. But if the person wrote all of his belongings to it can be to one recipient, it can be to 1,000 recipients. Point is that the gifter retained nothing for himself. Then ein matanosai kayemes. But when do we say that? He wrote a document. No, it's if a shchivmera doesn't make a king, and of course ein matanosai kayemes. The Mishnah said hakoiser. So what do you mean ein matanosai kayemes? V'hu shehivri. Because we say the whole kinyan was from matna shchivmera. Says the Gemara, Rav Ba, in the name of Rav Huna, in the name of Rav, he writes that also divrei shchivmera, not like the Tana Rabbi Eliezer, but we follow the other opinions that also divrei shchivmera kibari shekasav v'nasan. The Gemara. This is the sugya here in the Yerushalmi. No, number one, a kinyan doesn't have to be made. His words are as if, guys, kasav is not a kinyan. Yeah, David. Kasav, shtar, is a kinyan when you give over the shtar. Shekasav v'nasan the document. But, and who asked the question before? That means if the shchivmera gets better and then he gets sick again. So that was the whole topic we had on the Bible. In other words, it has to be meis ma'oisa choyli. I think the question was, what happens if he gets out of bed and then ma'oisa choyli he gets back into bed? It's all COVID. All deaths are COVID. Okay. In other words, the point is, then loy. However, another detail that we need to have, or this is a continuation of the words of Rav himself, that ubimesayim, when do we say that there is a power in the words of the shchivmera if what he gifted orally is bimisayim, which means that he delineated the boundaries of the field. It was very specific what he was giving. Because if he leaves anything vague, it's automatically not a matna shchivmera. And so there's two things. He has to be Messiah, the field. He has to speak out the borders of a field, which is, by the way, what you do in a document. When you make a document, you write the boundaries of a field. And number two, in other words, if you don't specify, if you don't indicate clearly what you want to give, to whom you want to give, it's not a matna shchivmera. The whole point is shchivmera is anxious that he's going to die. So when a person is in that state, they're very clear. They're very specific. When people are not specific in what it might mean, they're not certain they want to give it. Fakir, the whole thing of a shchivmera is that he wants to give it. He wants to give it so badly that if he's going to hear that he didn't make a king and it's not going to be given, he's going to go crazy. It's going to hurt his health. In other words, Omar, or the Gemara is asked, what happens if he says, the Chatzisani, Pliny, he didn't specify who's getting what side. In fact, the Gemara, is it Kamisha Siem? Why? Because we know precisely the borders of the field that he's giving away, even though we don't know which recipient is getting what. It's good enough. Oi, Achi Yoimad, Chetzia B'Tzafein, And this is a boy of the loy ifshit. We're going to stop over here. In other words, is the specificity on the gifter, as long as the gifter clarified what he's giving and who the recipients are, but even though we don't know which one is getting which half, or it has to be so specific that he says which one is getting in what direction. And if he didn't do that, it's not matna shchivera. And that we leave open-ended. When people are anxious, you're clear, when people are anxious, they don't get fartumot. They become more specific. The person is in that anxious state. Oh my God, the person saying that I'm coming to meet the Oiverstedt, let me tend to my affairs. They get very detail-oriented. They get very detail. And if they're not mamish detail-oriented, then we don't say that they're giving it shchivera. If I get people that are healthy, certain people make promises. I'm giving you this, I'm giving you that. That promise means nothing. A shchivera is very specific.
So Shir talking what portion when he left something over for himself implies that everything that he didn't leave over has to be specific.
No. Implies that whatever he's giving is not as matna shchivera. That's the general rule. A matna shchivera, this guy who thinks he's going to die,
Gives everything.
Unless he's not ill immediately, David. If he gradually got ill, he'll give everything away. That's the presumption. Now, of course, if he says, don't forget the guy can have yarship. If he says, I'm giving this as a shchivera, he can give away only 10% or 20%, which I think is even more common.
Yeah, then if he gets better, then that still stands.
Whenever he gets better, matna shchivera is completely null and void.
No, and in the case that he leaves something over for himself,
Then it's not considered a matna shchivera, and if there was a kinyan, koisev and oisen, then it stands. Very good. Yeah.
What's the guideline, or when does it become a shchivera based off of